All right, thank you for joining us today. My name is Mark Allard-Will. I'll be both the host and moderator of today's chat. As you can see, I'm joined by Elephant Seal. And before we go any further, we have to say a huge thank you to Matt for letting us host the interview here in Rainy Day Studios.
Yeah, thanks
Matt
for being here.
is also a phenomenal bass player.
Yeah, I play kind of everything.
Bass player in Green Wing, which is a phenomenal local hard rock band, and you should go and check those out. But first things first, let's go back to the beginning before we talk about the new album. How did Elephant Seal come to be?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, me and Jordan, my cousin, we started playing music about, I guess it would be 11 years ago, and literally he would just come over into my little basement suite with his guitar, and we would just write music like that. And eventually we added Josh as a drummer.
Yeah.
Not too long after that, and
we just played a lot.
That's kind of it.
I think that was the thing. Like, we used to, we were over to your house. We just, play everything. Like, we play Black Keys, Arcade Fire, stuff like that.
Whatever we were listening to
at the time, kind of thing. And then, I was going to church at that time, and Josh was going there, and he would always play drums in the band. And so then I always said, after church, do you want to just play? So me and him would just play. And then eventually I was like, is it okay if my cousin joins us? And he's like, oh yeah, bring him there. And then Seth came along, and I don't know, 10 minutes in, clearly Josh and Seth were better friends than me and Josh. And the rest, we just kept playing a lot. But we played very different music at the time, I think. It was very bluesy rock stuff.
Well, we were just jamming. We weren't really, I think when we started, we weren't really writing anything intentionally. We were just sort of playing whatever we wanted, and it was just for fun, really.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. And Josh was just a much better musician than us. And so it was always that Josh would do this crazy drum thing, and we were like, all right, the only thing I can do is this little bluesy riff that's very easy to play. That's as fast as I can go. And so I think we kind of worked. Eventually, I think we kind of figured out how he played, and then we sort of adapted. But yeah, so that's kind of how we started. Yeah. Oh, I guess, and then later on, I don't know, 4 years ago.
It was. Are you talking about when I joined?
When you joined,
yeah. I think it was beginning of 2020.
It was after that first record.
It was after.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were points in that first record where you're like, and I'm not going to play bass here, and I'll play keys instead.
Yeah.
And then I very politely was like, or you could just get your wife, who's a phenomenal pianist.
It's hard to do that in a show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would play on the first album. I just got this digital piano, and then I would just tinker on it all the time. And I was like to Josh and Seth, I just said I will try to play keys on this song, but I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just I can play triads throughout the whole song. So on the first album, it's just me playing really shitty
You may do.
I did what we did our best, and then eventually we were like, maybe we should get somebody who can actually play piano. And Joyce is very good at piano. And then we immediately wrote a song that was very piano driven with Fear to Fly. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's how the band came together.
And what's in the name? That's such a unique name. How did you come to Elephant Seal?
Jeez, I was waiting for this.
I knew
It's not very spectacular. I think at the time, and like I described when me and Jordan and Josh were getting together to jam, a lot of the bands we were listening to all were just animal names, or had animals in there somehow, like Frightened Rabbit, Deer Hunter, I don't know, The Antlers, just all very nature oriented, and so. Somewhat jokingly, I think, I'm not sure who suggested it, but we thought, what's one of the most kind of upsetting animals? and it was an elephant seal. And I feel kind of bad for the elephant seal because, he's named after a different animal. So he's got a kind of a rough lot. Yeah, that works, I think. But now, even as the new album is out, I think in some moments on that album, I'm like, oh, this sounds like an elephant seal a little bit. It's really... I don't know, thick and slow. So, which is what everyone wants out of their music.
And upsetting and ugly.
That's
and
right.
Yeah, so the album really reflects the name a little bit. But yeah, I think it was just we were having fun. We were just what is a gross looking animal? Because we were
but that still could be construed as serious.
Exactly.
They're so artsy. I see. That shows a very interesting animal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I think the issue though is then once we kind of pushed to be a real band, it became awkward to tell people at first. We were
Well, and at the time it was the Elephant Seal Song Company, right?
That's true, because we thought it'd be cooler to make the name more complicated. So for a long time, and on the first album, it's like a self-titled album. So the first album is called the Elephant Seal Song Company. And so we thought, oh, that would be really, really cool if we just like made it super long. But then it became like people really didn't respond super well to that name. So we were like, let's just go back to the shortened version. So
hone in on just the Elephant Seal.
just the Elephant Seal, which was still awkward, but people I think came
Less
around.
awkward.
Yeah.
Less awkward.
Much more approachable as a band name.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, and I remember as well, as you went through the first album and with COVID coming along, you had a very unique way of dealing with the challenges of COVID, the challenges of lockdown. Can you talk us through how that came to be with rehearsals and stuff like that?
Those were some of the most fun rehearsals, actually.
It turned out fun. Yeah, I think at the time we weren't really, enthusiastic because obviously it was felt like a downgrade from our normal practice
Right.
space.
I just remember seeing like a social media post, and it's like Josh set up on a hunk of plywood in the middle of a field, and like I could just tell from the photo that like you were miserable but also having a blast.
So that was the thing. So what happened was that Josh's like family had like an acreage out of town. And so he was like, okay, you know what? Like, we can't get together, but it was like summertime, because we kind of didn't really practice during the winter. But then, summertime came around, and he was like, okay, what if I just set up like these pallets that are like 15 feet apart, and you'll put like your guitar and your amp on the pallet, and then we'll put the drum kit on a pallet, we'll put Joyce and her piano on a pallet, and then we'll just play outside. We'll just turn up as loud as we possibly can. And it was so much fun.
It ended up
Yeah, it
being
ended
great. Yeah.
Yeah, the acoustics outside are like apparently
and
incredible.
I think after being cooped up and like not getting to be creative too, just like, you know, I feel like most creative people at that point would just take scraps, right? So the fact that it was like even vaguely good was like probably the best thing in the world.
Well, that was the thing, and like it was kind of neat because some of the photos from the first kind of practice we did outside are like in like a big kind of open area, and it became the case that it was like super hot. Like it would just be like the sun would be blaring. So then the next couple of times there was like this really old like shack of a garage like building. I don't even know if they were using it anymore, but it was kind of like enclosed by trees. And so he was like, okay guys, I've tried a different thing. I cut out all of the brush on the bottom, and I like slid these pallets into the forested area.
We were in a grove.
It was like a
Yeah.
grove.
It
Yeah,
was
it was
magical
a glen,
almost,
really.
yeah.
It was a glen.
Vaguely magical.
Vaguely
And so
magical, yeah.
it actually sounded fantastic because you had like the tree cover actually like, I don't know, it seemed to like stifle the
Dampen it
sound.
a bit.
Yeah, and then the wall against the actually like kept the acoustics lively enough that we could actually hear each other, and the trees were made it cooler. So like, and the wind never bothered us because it used to be that the wind would just like ruin the microphones too. Like, so then it was like, oh, this was a much better space. So then we practiced there quite a bit during COVID actually.
What I loved the most about that space was that when we were practicing and it was windy, you would often hear the wind blowing the branches of the trees against the building, and it would just sound so foreboding. Like, you're like, wow, this really adds to our art. This is,
That's true.
this is good.
Yeah,
True,
yeah. So that was really fun. And then I guess like once it got too cold outside to play, I think we ended up, maybe only once or twice did we ever mask up and go into Josh's house. I don't even know if we ever did that.
We played at Ken Rock where Josh worked.
Oh, right.
In the
we
warehouse.
found
In the warehouse.
One time in the winter. We
That
did
was really
yeah.
fun. So like
Yeah.
Josh working at this big like construction materials place, and so he had access to the warehouse. So he had asked his boss like, "Do you want if my band plays in this giant warehouse?" and he's like, "Yeah, I guess." He's like, just because like it's enough space. So yeah, then we spread out super far. We were like, I don't know what was surrounding us. Like I feel like
Well, it was just
Just
like stacked high,
shelves
huge
of
warehouse shelving.
plywood
There's-
or something.
yeah, exactly. And
Things
like building
everywhere.
materials, and it sounded actually terrible. Like I think that was not a good.
Better than nothing though.
But better than nothing,
Yeah.
for sure, which is
Would
good.
say.
So that's how we adapted.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And speaking of adapting, and we're coming up to the bit that might be a little bit tougher to answer, and you've dealt with a tragedy, and speaking about being able to adapt to adverse situations, can you talk us through that kind of tragedy that you suffered in 2022 and kind of how you're beginning to process that?
Yeah.
I felt like you guys were doing the stare off of like who has to say.
That-
it.
yeah, well, that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Sorry, what was the question? Very, very difficult, and Jordan and whoever you should add, but I think, in after we lost Josh, the one of the biggest things was deciding to finish the project, and deciding that that's what Josh would want, I think, and that was a lot of motivation for me to persevere through it, because it was definitely a headache. It would have been a lot easier to not, I think.
Well, we were like in the position where we were in the middle of, we just gotten a grant from Creative Sask, and we were like excited to record this album, and we had gotten started with it. Josh had laid down the drum tracks for, I think it was two tracks, yes. And we had started writing the rest of the songs. So then that's when he died. So we were sort of in this position of like needing to decide, should we find a different drummer? Do we just play the rest of the album with no drums? How does our sound need to adapt? Let alone how do we like emotionally handle finishing the project? But we, as Seth said, decided to forge ahead because it felt like a very important project to Josh. It felt like a way to honor him. And Matt definitely like talked us through our options, and we ended up finding another drummer to drum for the album, Brandon, and he was like really, really good about it. Very sensitive to the space that was different and kind of like sad, obviously. So yeah, but I think the way he drums is very like responsive, I guess, to the music, which is what we loved so much about how Josh drums. So that although the styles are still very different, it still seemed to work out. And I think we all think that Josh still would have wanted that to happen.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It was like, Josh was very much like the heart and soul, I think, of the band in lots of ways. He put just an immeasurable amount of energy into the band. He was very serious about it. He really was the one that pushed us to take it seriously and really wanted to. And so I think, when he passed, it was like, I think it was so sudden. And I think it was so sudden and such that I think we just kind of thought, oh, the band's gone too. Like, he's the heart of it. But then we just kind of realized that maybe like his spirit was sort of in just every single song, and like we knew that his spirit was in the album. It was in the purpose of the album. We knew that I don't know, like we knew he'd be so mad if we didn't try, because he always wanted us to, and he always kind of had a fail safe if he ever couldn't make a show. He was always like, you find another drummer, you play that show because the band is worth it. And so I think we sort of took that advice to, he can't be here, but we're going to do it. But it was hard. I didn't listen to any of our music for 6 months, I think, probably. I don't think we played. I don't think we even thought about it for a long time. And Creative Sask was incredibly gracious with us, and like we really owe them.
Everybody in our corner. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Everybody was so supportive during that time.
Oh,
like,
it was.
We wouldn't
insane.
be here without.
No, it was insane. Like we are very, very lucky. The music community that like has backed us up in Saskatoon has been incredibly kind and gracious and patient with us, and I think we're just a small band that I think experienced a huge tragedy, and so I think it was nice to know that there was a very generous community behind us, and specifically I think in Matt being somebody who, produced our first album, became a friend, knew Josh really well. I think when Josh passed, it was very clear that like Matt was one of our closest friends. We just like realized that for the band, he was somebody that was just deeply in our corner. And then also our band manager, Mel, who's behind the camera, she also was, I think, absolutely integral to us finishing. I don't think we would have tried, maybe. I don't think we could have believed that we would do it. We probably couldn't have done it without her actually saying, all right, guys, this
Here's
is the
the next
deadline.
milestone.
Here's the
Here's
next
the next
milestone.
one."
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
So,
not a chance.
Just keeping things moving, right?
oh, man.
Because call it what it is. Like at the end of the day, it was just like fundamentally very fucked.
Oh, man.
Right?
It was, yeah.
And like nothing really prepares you for how to respond to a phone call like that.
Yeah.
And then I think also in your guys' position, you, besides like immense loss, you ramped into that loss with like some pretty big successes and like first, like you guys achieved grant funding through Creative Sask as like fundamentally speaking a very small band that hasn't toured yet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like
Yeah.
objectively a hard thing to do. That means you turned in a good grant, you made a case well, you were very formulated in it. So it was like a big success, and you came right out of that into just, I don't know, like the worst imaginable thing you could put with, deal with.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I don't remember the actual calendar dates, but I feel like there was probably 6 months where, there was no conversation about music.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it happened and a week later everyone was like, we need to do this. It's the exact opposite. It's like everything paused, and everybody was like, okay, let's go be sad and have a lot of fire pits this summer.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what we did.
Let's see friends, let's consistently bitch about the state of things. And then even when you guys finally decided what you were doing, how you were going to proceed, like specifically that first time you guys were in here, it was really fun, and it was also really fucking miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I think that was one of the most meaningful sort of parts on kind of coming out of that grief. I mean, I shouldn't say come out of the grief, but coming into the music space while being in that grief was, Matt had us in the studio, and we didn't really know what to do, so we just like sat on the floor with like guitars and just tried to play something out, and it started to sound good. Like it just started to sound nice, and so then it ended up being that like Matt plays on 2 of the songs on our album, because in that one of those first sort of meeting times, we're all just playing the guitar and realizing that that we actually have something to offer even if Josh is gone. And I think we just it's a hard realization, I think, to know that like his inspiration is still with us even if he isn't, and but it was good to, I think it was a good thing that we were able to do that. But again, it's because of people who made tons of space for our grief, who let us be super sad, who never like expected us to get past it, but also just said, when you're ready, we're here, and Matt did that. So and again, everybody did. So yeah, so I think, I don't remember what the question was, but that's kind of how we dealt with some of it.
Yeah.
And we're still like, I don't know, I think we're still very much,
Well, it's very non-linear, right?
Man, yeah.
Like there'll be, so working on this album, we essentially did 2 singles in a weekend, and then would take in between a month and 6 weeks off, come back, do another 2 singles in a weekend.
Yeah.
And there were points of every weekend where it was like more fun than we've ever had hanging out. Yeah. And then there were points where it's like, we're angry and sad.
Yeah.
And super non-linear in the sense of like, the way you're feeling 3 months down the road versus 1 month after, and you as you're processing something like that, like there's distinctive points of like just being pissed about it, like not even upset, just angry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember times even like recording it where like, Seth was like laying down a vocal track, and it's just like, I can't. I'm just not going to right now. Like it's just it's a hard day. It's a hard day. I don't sound the way I want to sound. I'm gonna come back another day, because you just kind of have to own that, And I think in any other situation we'd say we're just gonna spend another 2 hours. We're just gonna do it, But in this case we're like, no, like we just have to be able to know what our capacities are and whatnot. But
I think just being real about like the space you guys needed as well, and like being able to very comfortably be like, nope, I'm not good right now. We're not going to do this vocal take right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Or be like, hey, I'm in a shit mood. Let's go for lunch.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly, which was
Lunch
really
is good.
good.
Yeah, yeah, just like little things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like on any other project, kind of the motive is like, hey, time costs money. Suck it up, let's finish the record. And
Exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that wasn't the angle here. The angle
no,
was
I
very great.
think front to back, what was this, like 14 or 16 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super long.
Because that's what it took, and
Yeah.
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 And so coming through that, you've got this new album, and I've heard it, I've listened to it start to finish, and it is a beautiful album, a beautiful legacy for Josh. And the soundscape is just another level. I can't even define the genres that you've blended there.
Don't try.
We've
We
been
don't
trying
know.
for years.
It's everything.
All the things.
It just feels like there's so much philosophy in the lyrics too, and I just wanted to know what's all the inspiration behind the music, the lyrics, everything in the album.
Oh, man.
I gotta jump on this really quick. You need to tell the story about the crumpled up paper of lyrics you found that you then wrote a song about.
Yeah. Well,
Or
one
wrote a
of
song around, I guess.
yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the tracks on the album called Likeness was at the time unnamed, but this is quite recently now. We're working on the album, and I found this loose leaf paper. It looks like an ancient maps and document, like it's just weathered and it looks gross. I'm like, what's this? So, retrieve it, and it's lyrics that Josh had written way back when probably the second time.
Was it probably 8-9 years ago?
Yeah,
It
well,
was like a
when
long-
when Jordan would have invited me to
Just
come.
stuffed in a guitar case.
Yeah,
Super
just
early
stuff
on.
down there.
Yeah.
And I remember I opened it. I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember Josh wrote this specifically with me in mind because he kind of knew like my register and like, oh yeah, stuff would sound good." That's just how thoughtful he was. But we at the time we didn't end up doing anything with it. We kind of just like, "Oh, that's okay," and then we just got distracted. And so we actually needed another track on the album, and we didn't have we had lots of ideas, but there wasn't anything solid. And so I kind of said, "We need to do this.
Yeah.
We'll take these lyrics and we'll arrange the song." I was able to remember the rough chords that
was
Josh
the crazy thing. You
had.
you showed us this, and
Pulled
then
it from the ether.
and
Yeah,
then
from
I
the-
remember the melody line, and
Yeah.
then it hit me. I was like, "That is exactly
Well, it's a
right.
great melody
I
line.
can't
It's
believe
good.
it. I could not believe that you
So-
remember that. I was like, I can't remember what happened last week. You remember something that happened 8 or 9 years ago? Like I could not believe it. But it was like it was almost a complete song. you know?
Yeah.
and just in an effort to make sure that Josh was on the album as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because he had, even though like we mentioned, before he passed, he had recorded 2 of the tracks that are on the album, the drums, but for almost every other song on there, he had worked with us on the music at least.
Well, they were like writing session demos too, and then I think the hard part too was like, so you're going through the demos and comparing it to where the songs evolved to, and sort of processing and making that decision of when is it reasonable to enforce playing it as Josh had played it in those first few times, and
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
was it reasonable to say, hey, like, this is a different drummer, they don't sound the same, let's lean into this new drummer's style on this track.
Yeah.
And like just finding that balance where it felt like you're like honoring Josh's contributions in the writing stage of things without being just
forcing it.
well, and absolutely
Yeah.
beholden to it, because at the end of the day, if you're hard line about anything like that in the creative sphere, it's not going to do what you want. It's not going to stand up.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think kind of interesting, just to kind of go to your question about a little bit, is like, I think for a long time, Josh's contribution very much was to help, like, actually really create the soundscape of the song. Josh's drumming is I mean, in almost a literal sense, the heartbeat of it. Like, really, it's like his drumming influenced how we play a guitar, how we'd write our bass line, what the melody would sound like, how we would move, how fast we'd go, like all those sorts of things, just what he would do. And we were always kind of in awe of his capacity and his ability and his creativity. But when Josh passed, I think we realized that, we're going to have to write without his actual drumming now. So sort of like and I think we really, truthfully, we leaned into sort of like the essence of it in many ways, but we leaned into, I think, Seth's lyrics a lot. Like, I think the way Seth is going to like write a lyric or how he's going to sing a melody really helped us say, okay, so this is how we have to play this. We don't have sort of like, because Seth and Josh had their ability to like just blend kind of the motivation. Seth had these like complex, really creative lyrics with words that we've never heard before, and then Josh would play something that I didn't know you could play before, that I, you know, it just, and so then they would just blend those things, and so then we would just kind of fill in the space, you know. But now it was like, hey, we don't have Josh here, so what do we do, you know? And Brandon, who drummed for the remainder of the songs, you know, his contribution was very much, I'm going to be what you guys need. I'm not going to just add a million things. My goal is not to redo what Josh did. It's not to be a huge part, like a new part of the band. It's just to be the support role, which was what we needed. So then, yeah, I think it really became Seth saying, these are the lyrics, these are the chords. What are we going to do? How do we wrap this around? And you know,
Well, especially in that song. Yeah.
Especially in that song, right? Because that
Yeah.
song requires a lot of vocal range for you, I think, too. So it's like, yeah. So I think our soundscape is really influenced by the I don't know, the essence of what Seth's writing about, the pictures that he's writing about. I don't know. Joyce and I often talk about how Seth's imagery is super inspiring for how we want to play. You know, if he's going to put these words together, there are some sounds that don't make sense with those words, and there are some sounds that make a lot of sense. And usually the sounds that make sense are very dark tonally and like kind of slow but they really add a lot of emphasis, and I think the story building is such a key part of how we write, which is also difficult because it makes, I don't know, we never know. SoCan always wants us to put like a genre down, and we're always like, I guess rock? I don't know. Like that's the closest
Yeah,
thing. Like so.
That works.
Yeah. Do you have any
Good
thoughts
catch-all.
about the soundscape?
Sure. No, I think I definitely agree with, like, especially in this last album, I feel like Seth often like set the tone with the lyrics and then would like come to our house and like play it on his acoustic, and that would sort of like set the tone and provide a bit of a framework for us to just start building off of. And I think because the lyrics are so narrative structured, the soundscape did have to sort of like world build around the words to let those really shine. So I think, yeah, I would say that's like the biggest inspiration. Seth would have to explain the inspiration behind the lyrics themselves, but
Well, yeah. I have a really vivid imagination. So
No.
that's about it. No, yeah, I don't know. So the way I approach the lyrics is mostly like I want to write a poem, and then so I would often like just have an idea like. And often inspired by real poems. So like Redshift Horizon, I am inspired by Milton's Paradise Lost, kind of looking at the words in there, especially in the opening, and then saying, okay, let's see if I can, using that as inspiration, build a song and a concept off of it. And you know, like Joyce and Jordan have said, like it feels very narrative in nature because like it feels like a story emerges. And but yeah, at the end of the day, I'm trying to write a cool poem. And like so, Redshift is a good example actually because I wrote that and had no idea what to do for music, but then a year later was like, here's something that works. Yeah. Like here's some chords that will fit. So, but yeah, a lot of the songs that I did were like that. So I would just sit on these words and then either with the help of the band come up with music to accompany them, or else, you know, finally something works. So, thank goodness.
Yeah. I think the way that those songs come together, they do feel. I mean, I think we genuinely do stick with like. It's like Seth will bring the lyrics. We're always like, "Holy shit! Like, how do you write this?" and then we're just like, "So what do you want to do with it?" And he's like, "I don't know." And so then there was a few times where I went over to your house and we just got guitars, and you're like, "I was thinking this," but so we're like sitting in front of the computer, like reading his lyrics. I'm like, "I don't," you know. But then eventually, like, yeah, he would say, "I think it's like this thing," and then we usually just kind of stuck with that. But then every once in a while, you know, somebody throws in like, "Hey, let's do this thing." But I think Simulacra. Is a really good example also of like a song that like the music adjusts to the story that's being told. And I think that's what I love the most about that song is it feels like the most refined, mature song that maybe we've ever written. We did write it almost entirely without Josh, which is also feels a little bit like an accomplishment in a weird, gross way almost. But like we had to. And so the first half of the song is very narrative and dark, and it really builds this sort of this story about a character that you come to relate to, I think. And then it stops and it hits you with this like weirdly inspiring, nostalgic feeling, almost hopeful sense of kind of like the struggle we all kind of go through being just the thing that we do as humans, and you just kind of keep doing it and you find little bits of hope, and you so I don't know, it's like Seth one time had said that, like, you know, it's like a blend of like existentialism, how do you say that word?
Existential.
Extension cord.
Existential.
Amazing.
Okay.
Whatever.
Existentialism.
Thank you. That's what I'm thinking. Clearly, I don't study that.
You just
and
live it.
I just like know the word. I thought I knew the word. I can spell it. But then and like hopefulness, which is like sometimes feels like a weird sort of blend. It's a blend that, you know, sometimes those things don't feel like they can come together. But in that song they do, and I think there's something big and moving, and it's certainly the song that I tear up on almost every time I listen to it, which is, I think, I don't know, a mark of a pretty good song.
Yeah, I think that means you wrote a good song.
I think so, yeah.
What's interesting about that song is it feels, because we didn't write it with Josh hardly at all, yet it still feels like he's in it somehow.
Yeah.
So I feel like, for me at least, that was the song where we were able to like somehow symbolize this major grief and absence from our lives. And I think that is sort of like an underlying inspiration for this album, simply because that is where we were. And I hope that it translates to other people's lives who maybe don't have the same sort of loss. But I think, I don't know, there is like this existentialism, I think, that all of us feel every now and then when we're willing to glance at it. And I think that sort of was a bit of an undercurrent in this whole album for the lyrics, as well as the sound.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, sorry, this song, I love this song. I feel like we just talked about this song a lot. But it's
no.
I think what's neat about the song is that I don't know if there's actually a defined meaning to the song. Like, I don't think Seth would say that this is the one thing, it means this, I sure hope that I get this idea across. I don't think that's how it is. I think, you know, for anybody who's listening to that song, you find yourself sort of in that space, you find a way to make it relate to you. You kind of want to. I think the lyrics are moving, and if you listen to it and you allow the pictures to be created, I think Seth allows you to build the world. He's given you sort of the tools that you pull from like the little like box on the side of the screen, and you put it in and you build your own world with it, so that it makes sense to you.
This is like what I say because I don't want to, you know, it's so much work to people ask you, what do you mean by these lyrics? And my lazy answer is, well, you can interpret them.
You tell me.
But as tacky as it is, I actually do think that's kind of my philosophy towards it, because at the end of the day, if I tell you exactly where my head was at when I was writing this stuff, I think that kind of wrecks the mystery a little bit.
Well,
I mean, I'm going based on some of my favorite work, right? And that's been my favorite experience when I hear a song that I love and I'm like, oh, I need to look at the lyrics, and I look at them and I'm like, oh, I don't know what the hell this means. Incredible! Like there you go. I need to listen to it more. So I mean, so I guess in a way that's part of the experience I'm trying to create for the listener, whoever's listening. But.
Well, and I think the good mark of like lyricism in music is it's concise enough of an idea that a person can hold on to it, but it's also vague enough that with no description, somebody listening can connect to it and put themselves into it.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why this song specifically feels like a bit of a triumph than everything for you guys is, like, I know the focus has been, like, Josh was an amazing drummer, but, like, more than that, I think Josh's, like, main role in the band is he, like, very politely was like, you're stupid, Seth. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Chase
absolutely.
that idea.
Yeah.
And I think he did it for, like, each one of you guys in different ways, where he really, like, championed your ideas and, like, really pushed for you guys to explore, like, who you were as artists.
Yeah.
So then, in turn, having to go full circle and just do that on a song without the person who was telling you that what you were doing was good enough or that what you were doing was like something worth pursuing, feels a certain way, because, you know, 3 months prior to that, you probably stared at a brick wall and said, I can never do this again. There's no way we could write music.
Yeah.
You know?
He was our biggest champion. I mean, like, I think Seth and I would say he was, and you would say it too, like their best friend. He was very much a brother to us. And he was by far our biggest champion, like both to our faces and behind our backs. You know, like, I think I've learned more since his passing about how he spoke about us, about how happy he was about the band, how excited he was, how much he just like loved the space that we were able to create as a band. I mean, I didn't even realize it. You know, and I felt it though. I felt that he deeply loved me and loved us and loved our project and loved the spaces we created. But then, yeah, like after his passing and speaking to other people, you know, with whom he loved a lot too, and realizing, oh my goodness, like we were part of those conversations. And I know those people because they were part of the conversations he brought forward. And so, yeah, he was kind of everybody's champion, and really wanted to make sure that there was sort of this like interesting, he was sort of the matrix where people's ideas and thoughts and new things kind of like met, and you would learn about somebody through him or learn about music through him. Or so, yeah, like I think when we write now, it's sort of you can't he's inescapable. Like Josh is an inescapable part of the music, whether he literally put music on it, or whether he's just kind of in our minds and our hearts as we're writing. He's absolutely inescapable in it, and I think Simulacra feels like the right way to end an album in that way, because it's sort of a piece of us saying like, I don't know, like, yeah, like we could, like, thanks for championing us, you know.
Not to downplay any of Elephant Seal's accomplishments, but like we're a small band, but we've done some awesome stuff, and I think just to echo everybody, like whatever we've done, we owe the majority of that to Josh as being our cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that's a big part of it, and thinking about the songs again, still like, I think what's also beautiful is the ability for like the songs are complex. And I think for some people that's a little bit of like, not everybody loves to listen to like a 7.5-minute song that like has, I don't know, like 40 words that you probably have to look up.
It's
like,
7 minutes, but it feels like 4. That's our hope.
Not if you're the one mixing it. As a listener, I love the record. As a mixer, it's like, oh yeah.
Cool. Interesting choice.
Yeah. But what is neat about that is it creates a space to be reinterpreted over and over again.
Big time.
So it's like, you know, the songs that Josh drummed on and actually, you know, are Redshift Horizon and Wasp.
He was
Neufeld,
instrumental in Wasp, but yeah, Neufeld's what he
sorry,
drummed on.
in Neufeld. Redshift Horizon is like one of the singles that I think a lot of folks that did listen to it really, really like, and it's definitely a song that I like a lot. When we first put it out, it meant a different thing to me. It meant like, you know, this is sort of a refined version. There's a maturity in it. I was so excited. It felt like it almost represented a new kind of capacity. I'm a better musician now. But Josh passed, and all of a sudden the song meant something different, you know? And I don't even know how I would define what it means, but it definitely feels like it takes on new meaning. And I think that's one thing that I love about the soundscapes, about the lyrics, about the spaces that create. I think that they have longevity to them, and they have an ability to be reinterpreted based on your season. And you relate with different characters at different points. The music hits in different ways. And I don't know, I think what's always been funny, we've always said this, is like, we're our music's biggest fan. Like, we listen to our own music more than anybody else listens to our music, because we're just writing music that we really, really like. Like, we like this. If somebody else made this music, we'd probably listen to it, you know? And I think that's kind of neat about that, is to really, to like what you're doing is...
I hope that's true of most bands.
I can't imagine being in a situation where you're creating something and putting energy and effort and money into it and just being like, this is hot trash.
This is terrible.
Other people like it.
I really think, like, and obviously this speaks to the fact that you guys really just loved creating, like, outside of playing shows, outside of recording, like, you just liked creating as a group. And yeah, it's impossible to expect anyone else to feel passionately about what you do if you don't.
Yeah.
People
exactly.
can see it.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the album's out now. How's the response been to the album?
Oh man.
Well, those who have heard it have said nice things. And I take that as a compliment.
So to rephrase Mark's question, the people who have consumed your previous music and had expectations, how did they receive it? How did they react to it?
Oh yeah, I think there was a very positive reaction going from the first album, the Elephant Seal Song Company, to Your Ascent. There was like, we had a huge difference.
There's
in how
definitely
that was
people that I
received.
think were nice about our first album, that were genuinely nice about our second album.
They were supportive friends first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I think it is, like, again, because it's, I think it our music, I don't know, I love this about our music, but our music is, I think it takes time. I think our music is, it's very much like you put it on, it's an hour long. It's not like a quick, 20 or 30 minute album. So it's like, you put it on, it's telling a story. In many ways, whether, I don't know if it's on purpose or not, it ends up being, both of them end up being kind of concept albums in lots of ways, where things are interacting with each other at different times, and you can pick out all these little, like,
There's
Easter eggs.
Yeah, sorry. There's to riff off that. There is a ton of intertextuality, like especially within Arrest Your Ascent.
It's certainly an album and not 10 singles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a concept album, but it definitely.
No,
Yeah,
but there are
yeah.
there are some genres and styles of music that are meant to be you can consume them as an album, but here's your little bite, have a bite, and it's great to have it that way. And while I think your music stands up in that way, your music is best consumed with like a big old glass of red wine and a couch.
That you're
True.
not wrong.
Well,
And that's the thing. I mean, I think even like, I was recently like reading a blog post by Colin Malloy of the Decemberists, who is, I think, a band inspired that I like because of their lyrics. I like the stories that they build too. And he was talking about the importance of sequencing of an album. And I was thinking about how important Seth took sequencing in this album. I remember him many times being like, okay, I've got like a dozen different sequences and I'm narrowing them down. Okay, and I've got 3 sequencing. I don't know which one. I have 2. One is the right one, and like trying to figure that, because there is an importance, I think, in the way that the album has to flow, because we want people to listen to it, I think, as a unit, as like one sort of thing, right? Like,
That being said, I think what a lot of people have like outwardly said a lot is that they really appreciate the acoustic pieces in the album. So I think that's sort of a result of like not knowing like how we're going to handle this like not having Josh thing. And it's such a different like it's very different than our last album and then the rest of the album to have these 2 acoustic pieces. So they really do stand out, and they're also like a little bit like lighter to listen to than these like kind of like epic songs that you really need to like sink your teeth into. So I think those ones have maybe been the most like singled out ones.
See, and I listen to You're Not Mine, and I'm just like, this song makes me miserable. And I love it.
Yeah, maybe it's like accessible
like
misery.
It's the most like consumer-based one in terms of like it's a shorter song.
Right,
It's got
that too.
defined choruses. There's
Yeah.
no massive build-up in the middle where everybody has their like progressive moment, and I'm just sitting there being like, damn, I'm sad.
yeah, that's true. Even when we do a more consumer-friendly song, it's still so depressing. Like every time, like we just write that. I don't know.
Well,
But I think that is a song. Like You're Not Mine is certainly the song that people have responded to, I think, the best. I think it's gotten a lot of plays. I think when people have listened to it, they have said, like, I genuinely like listening to this song. Like, this is a song I want to. And it is something that, especially if you know of Josh or the grief that might, have informed that song a little bit, like, I think it really hits home. I always refer to it as, like, one of the most nostalgic songs ever. Now, it's literally nostalgic for me because we wrote that song at my house, like, 4 years ago? And Josh did the little piano hook and I was playing guitar, and Seth was literally just like tapping on the table to do drum stuff. And we wrote that song, and it was a song that we were like, man, we should really lean into this, but it's not going to fit the first album. And so we just didn't really do anything with it. Then we came back to it, and we were like, this is a good song, and we don't have drums to put on it anyway, so let's like really try to make it work.
You don't like my table tapping.
Well,
The other thing is
I asked Matt if we could mic up the table. He said we could bring that in. So
well,
yeah.
and coming full circle too, going from like Josh played on a few songs on the record to then you're essentially trying to find somebody to fill a void without filling the void.
Yeah, exactly.
So then it's also like kind of a bit of a bold choice to be like, and we're gonna end this record with a couple tracks that are just us. And even though You're Not Mine is like, you know, as you said, like an older song that you guys wrote it 4 or 5 years ago at least. To me, it also sounds the most. It's the most of a departure from all of your guys' songwriting, the styling of it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's also why people respond to it too, because it's the song that to me really shows that like the 3 and I guess now 4 of you guys in a space are still. You're still Elephant Seal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is true. I think it lends itself well to, you know, I know people have asked us a lot, like, so what's next? And on the one hand, I kind of hate that question because, like, we finished this album because we wanted to do justice and honor to Josh, who loved the project, and we wanted to continue loving it. We knew that he would want that for us. And so, you know, so what's next? I don't know, but music like that sounds good, and it feels good to play. And so I think, like, you know, when it comes to that song, it feels like that is the music that we were able to make. It feels very reflective of the space that we're in, and I think that is communicated well. I think people, they receive that translation. I think it's probably the song that maybe has the clearest, like, you're supposed to feel this way and you're supposed to interpret it this way, and most people I think maybe like not having to do so much work to interpret a song. But it also, I think the lyrics are still like absolutely stunning, and I think it's still something that people would have to like think through. But yeah, it is that one has gotten a lot of like good response to it. So yeah.
Talking about how it's a departure from our normal sound, this feels like an organic time to mention Risha's contribution to the album.
Oh yeah.
So you've been so quiet this whole time.
Thank you for waiting.
Patiently waiting. But again, and going back to how do you adapt for this loss? Risha stepping in to provide the harmonies and the backing vocals on this album, I think, was another shift in like, oh, like this is going to a new level.
Let's grow this. Yeah.
And let's grow this a little bit in a cool way. And so, like tracks like You're Not Mine, Risha's harmonies are really highlighted, and I think that really helps. You know, as you're talking about, how's the sound evolving? Where might we go from here?
Yeah.
I don't know. Risha's kind of helped fill some of that empty space.
Yeah.
Well, and I think something you guys did really well, and you didn't make a big stink about it, which I liked too. But you took the 2 tracks that you had previously recorded when Josh was alive, and although they'd been released as singles, we did remixed versions of them, not just to match the album, but also to kind of double down on the idea that Risha's now contributing.
Yeah.
And we did add some back-end harmonies on there, and it just like it tied the whole project together, and really it brought those tracks into the same realm as everything else.
Yeah.
And I think it did a really good job, because to me there's less of a stark difference of before and after.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It bridged it really nicely.
I feel a little bit like I'm just kind of along for the ride. But I know when Seth, especially after Josh died and he would play the songs around the house as he does regularly, I can't help but sing along. It's a compulsion. I must sing. And the more we did it, the more I think it felt empty when it wasn't there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's, I know this is, we're always devolving from your question into, but I just think like something that's really neat, I think, about this album in the context of, I mean, seriously, was like the worst thing that could have ever happened to us. Like, I actually can't even think of a more friggin' traumatizing event.
Oh,
you
I
know?
blacked out that week.
Like, you know, like I you know, but not only, you know, speaking of people, you know, supporting us and whatnot, people stepping in and helping fill gaps that we didn't even realize maybe were there. Like, Josh's drumming is big and full and takes up a lot of space, and we loved that about it. You know, he would go from like just like a 4 on the floor, super loud, to all these like clicks and ticks and little things on the drum kit and everything, you know, and that would fill a lot of space. And so when he was gone, there's a lot of space to fill if we still want it to reflect the kind of, you know, ambiance that we're creating and whatnot. And that was also too big of an ask, you know, for Brandon to do, to, you know, who you know, to ask him like, hey, can you do all of this stuff? Like, we didn't even know anybody could until Josh did anyway. So, you know, that was too much. But what happened is he came in and he filled in such integral parts that allowed the melodies to also come in and then fill a new spot that we were like, oh, I didn't realize that. And then, you know, we had someone named Hannah come in and play violin, and we were like, oh, we've never had that before. And that's new spaces that are filling in. And then, you know, Matt playing guitar on the 2 songs and adding contributions to, you know, on Paragon, we like wrapped like an elastic band around my strings so that it would just make that like tick 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 sound. And you know, like, here's this contribution that we're like, those kind of little ticks or something Josh would have done on the drums, but instead of doing that, we now are able to do that in a new way with what's available to us. So, you know, not only do people support us by giving us space to grieve and to be sad and continue to do that as we are continuing to be sad, to continue to grieve, but they also like came in and surprised us with the space that they could fill. And I think Risha really like, I don't know, I can't, some of these songs I can't imagine without harmonies, you know. There are like, and little things too on Simulacra. There's this part where she has these kind of ghostly whispers and oohs. When they're not there, you just know that. You're like, something's wrong with this song. I don't know what's wrong with it. Where's the ghost? You know, like, and so I think that's a really neat thing that has, I don't know, kind of come out of a bad space is these new connections, I think. Yeah.
One thing I'll say about the album, having listened to it start to finish with that advanced copy that Melody sent me, is that, yeah, as you say, it's this big album, very wide soundscape, and it's got this length to it where it feels like, having sat down and listened to it start to finish, you know that feeling when you sit down in the day and you read a novel, and it's a novel that really takes you through the character, and you feel the pain of the character, the joy of the character. I felt that kind of catharsis by the end of it. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you for saying that.
I feel like literally
effect.
0 people have ever said that,
Yeah.
but that's all we could have ever wanted.
Yeah,
is
that's
somebody be
great
like,
feedback.
"This is the novel, and
Yeah.
you finished the novel, and how does it feel?" Because we did a similar thing. Like, we did like a listening party the day that it was released. Thanks to Risha. Risha was like, guys, we have to do a release. And we were like, no, we're too sad to do it. And she's like, no, you're going to do it. You're going to be sad. But you're going to be sad together. And so we did a listening party, and we had, you know, whatever, 20-odd people come in and listen. And what was really funny is it took like, it was like 2 pages, like 4,000 words. So it actually is like reading like a short story or whatever, right?
Oh, did you print lyrics for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which was awesome.
bold move.
Yeah.
It was wow.
It was wow. And then like, and so we're all like, so we're sitting there, and the songs are coming on, and I think it was in that space as people are literally reading along, and we're playing it start to finish, and you know, the sound system was really, really good in their house, so you get to feel the full soundscape, and then you also have like the lyrics, and you realize that, yeah, it really is this sort of big novel that you kind of lose yourself in, you know, even though it's, and that's, I think that's what, you know, what we mean sometimes when we say like, it's 7 minutes, but it feels like 4, I swear. Because if you allow yourself to lose yourself in that music, in the moment, I'm sorry,
Finish it.
I kept saying it. I kept thinking of it. Damn it! But if you like lose yourself in the story, then I think I'm choosing a different word. I think like the experience, like reading a book, is I think is what you can get out of it. You know, because there is almost effort to it, but it's an effort that I think I don't know. It's like I feel like it's like when you watch like all of the Lord of the Rings and you're like, that's far too long. but I kind of like it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's something there about it, and I kind of so yeah, I appreciate that. That's what we want.
I think that's also a comment on the sequencing and really picking like an effective track order, because the other way that could have gone is you finished and you said, I need a beer. You know?
And sometimes we do feel that way.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is good. But I think you're right. I think like the song starts out, or the album I think starts out. What's the first song called? Paragon.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know the names of these songs. But it's like Paragon's a really interesting, very kind of like unique sounding song, and I think it does draw anybody who is interested in interesting music. I think will really be like, that's it. But then like the album comes out pretty heavy to begin with.
You
like
come out swinging.
Right? There's like a back to back songs that are like big and heavy, and there's a lot more tempo to them and speed to them, and and then it kind of takes you through like a smaller space, and you kind of learn to like sit into it a little bit, and I think you find yourself all of a sudden there's violins, and you're like, what the heck, the first 5 songs didn't have anything like this, and now I'm lost in this, like there's ghostly whispers and there's violins, and I think that is a beautiful way of listening to the album is to see it as this novel that you get to experience if you choose to, right? So
And in closing, so we keep referring to it as the new album, but it's called Arrest Your Descent.
Arrest Your Ascent.
Ascent, sorry.
Right, Arrest Your Ascent. No, a lot of people,
Including us.
make
that mistake.
say this, and I don't know why. I think there's like a Freudian thing
little
there.
bit, yeah.
But yes, no, continue.
Yeah, Arrest Your Ascent. Sorry.
Yes,
You did it again. But Arrest Your Descent.
One more try.
We could just call it that.
So Arrest Your Ascent is out now.
Yeah.
And how can viewers of this interview find it?
I mean, our website, elfinsealband.com, is a good place to go. It'll just like link you to anywhere that it's streaming. You can buy it on Bandcamp. I don't know how much it is on Bandcamp.
Doesn't matter, because Bandcamp gives way more money to you than other online stores. So buy it on Bandcamp.
If you can, buy it on Bandcamp.
Please,
yeah.
Bandcamp.
So just like elfinsealband.com, that would be the best place to go. But of course, it's like anywhere that you stream music, you can just like look for us. But you do have to do some work. We're very small, so you literally will have to type in like Elven Seal Band and then go to like the artist and then scroll down until you see.
You have to scroll past a lot of actual Elven Seals.
Actual Elven Seals have more plays than us. So you have to scroll down until you see our 4 cute little faces, and then you can click on that and listen to it. So, but I mean, if you go to the website, it's a little bit easier. I'll take you right there. So.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you joining me for the interview, and thank you for joining us. And go and listen to the album.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.